Our Rotary Club president this year is Catherine Kroll. She's going to introduce our keynote speaker for the morning, but I want to tell you a little bit about Kat. She is, well, the first thing and most importantly, I don't know if she'll share that, but she was hysterical at some of the earlier comments in the session. She's a Swiftie, okay? So be prepared, be prepared. She's also a communications specialist with Together Green Bay. She graduated from Preble High School, then went on to U of M, University of Minnesota, Twin Cities. As a parent of a UM grad, yay reciprocity. God, it's the best thing going. Kat, if you're from out of state, you don't understand. That's all right, that's important. Kat returned to Titletown after graduation, grew up in human services, so where her mom worked, and took a position with the Salvation Army, then connected with Rotary. She's no stranger to volunteering and service, continues to do that at an amazing level. She's a volleyball coach at Ashwaubenon High School, participated in a polio National Immunization Day in India. I think it was 2018, I'm not sure, and a big promoter of leadership Green Bay. So please help me welcome our Green Bay Rotary Club President, Kat Kroll.
Good morning, Rotary. You guys sound a little sleepy, maybe because you stayed up all night listening to the new Taylor Swift album like I did. It's probably what you did. Well, thank you, Tom, for that introduction. On behalf of the Rotary Club of Green Bay and my Together Green Bay team, welcome. We are so excited that you guys are here. We hope that you had a great evening last night, whether or not you listened to Taylor's new album. I get to recognize clubs that have sponsored TriCon2024. In addition to my own club, the Rotary Club of Green Bay, let us recognize the Rotary Club of Elmbrook, Rotary Club of Madison, Manitowoc Sunrise Rotary Club, Rotary Club of Milwaukee, and Rotary Club of Oshkosh. Let's thank these sponsors. I now have the honor of introducing another amazing Taylor, this morning's keynote speaker, Taylor Huie. She's a medical device design engineer at Stryker Instruments in Kalamazoo, Michigan, and a biomedical engineering graduate of Duke University. She serves as executive director of the Ascension Rotaract Network Multi-Districts Information Organization, supporting Rotaract. At Duke, she was charter president of the Rotaract Club of Duke University, a club that launched with 400 members. Yeah, pretty impressive. A dual member of the Rotary Club and Rotaract Club of Kalamazoo, she is also a member of the Rotary International Membership Growth Committee. Please help me welcome to the stage Taylor Huie.
Good morning, everyone. How's everyone feeling this morning? Good? Love it. I'm a morning person, so I apologize if I'm bringing too much energy. I'm happy to try to dial it back a little bit, but I'd like to say thank you all for welcoming me to TriCon 2024. You have all been so welcoming. It's amazing to be back in the state of Wisconsin. It's been a few years since I've been here, and it's my first time in Green Bay. And I have to say, I have definitely had more dairy products in the last 24 hours than I probably have had in all of 2024. And I am lactose intolerant, but it is all worth it. So friends, last night, for those of you that joined our plenary session, we had a great keynote and great conversation around the topic of the foundation and the amazing philanthropic work that we do within this organization of Rotary International. The engine of Rotary is our foundation, but the fuel that powers that engine are our members. It's every single one of you and every single one of your fellow members in your clubs that fuel the amazing work that we do across Rotary in our communities and throughout the world. So for that, I thank and I honor each and every one of you. Thank you. Now, I am honored to be a part of this incredible organization. We are 1.4 million people strong, previously 1.2 million, and I'll approach that number in a moment. But we know about the secret that is Rotary. We're all here because we know it's worth it for us to take time Saturday morning, throughout the week, throughout the weekend, 40 hours a week, depending on if this is a part-time job that you don't get paid for, which I know is the case for some of you in this room. We know the secret of Rotary and the magic behind the curtain. But there are 8 billion people in the world. 8 billion. But we only have 1.4 million members. That is a massive gap. Now, I look at that gap and I'm excited because what that means is we have so much potential and so much opportunity for growth. And it's up to us, each and every one of you, to bring in those individuals in our communities and welcome them into the world of Rotary. Now, I'm sure all of you have been a part of some conversation on membership, maybe hundreds of conversations on membership, if we're being honest. How do we grow our clubs? How do we invite more people into our organization and diversify our membership and increase our impact, expand our reach? And I hate to break it to all of you, but unfortunately, there is not one answer to that question. We have satellite clubs, we have e-clubs, we have international clubs and different ways to engage with Rotary that is not the traditional format. There are many different pilot programs that are being pursued as well throughout the world. And all of them are making an impact in some way. So there's no one right answer. But I do feel like there's one golden ticket, if you will. One solution that is the most future-focused, the most impactful, the most sustainable, and long-lasting, and that is engaging with the young individuals and young people in our communities. And one of those avenues is through Rotaract. So I'm excited to share with all of you this morning the story of Rotaract and our journey in Rotary with engaging with young individuals in our communities. And I hope by the end of this morning's session, you all feel inspired by the story of Rotary and the journey that we've been through as an organization of engaging young leaders in our communities. I hope that you feel excited to support young leaders and bring them into the family of Rotary. And most importantly, I hope that you feel empowered by the resources that are available to you, because each and every one of you have the ability to be that champion. But I promise you, you are not alone. We are all in this together, and we are all behind this idea of growing our people and growing our impact throughout Rotary. Now, how many of you have heard of the concept of an S-curve? Okay, see a few hands. So for those of you that don't know, in the world of business, there's this concept of an S-curve. So for new companies, typically in their infancy, there will be a very slow growth over time while they're getting their footing and beginning to get that traction. And then something happens, and there's massive growth and massive adoption and a lot of excitement. But then at some point, usually, those companies experience a plateau where that growth levels off. There's a slowdown in that adoption and that excitement. And friends, that's where we are in Rotary right now. We have reached our plateau. And that's okay. It's important for us to recognize that. I don't think this is a surprise to anyone, but over the last roughly decade, we have remained at 1.2 million members. And I know we're at 1.4 now. Again, I'll get to that in a moment. This doesn't mean that we haven't gained and lost members every single day, every single year. What it simply means is certain regions of the world have done a much better job of bringing in new members, creating new clubs, creating new and exciting opportunities for individuals in our communities to engage with Rotary. But there are some communities, some parts of the world that aren't seeing that growth and having that experience. Now, if you guys all had to guess, where would you say we fall on that spectrum in North America? Yeah, definitely on the latter side, which it's important to recognize that, and that's okay. Now, in my opinion, it doesn't make sense to try to reinvent the Rotary wheel and refigure out this topic of membership. What we should be doing is looking at those regions of the world that are experiencing that membership growth and still are on their upward track of that S-curve. So if we look at Zone 22, which is a large portion of Africa, if we look at Indonesia, Thailand, India, these regions over the last 25 years, if not more, have experienced massive growth and still are today. Now, there are a lot of different factors that play into the topic of membership and that trend over time in each of our regions, but if you compare the regions that are still growing, there's one factor that stands out that is consistent across each of those regions, and that is that each of those regions are focusing on engaging young people in their community. So these regions and these Rotarians and these members of Rotary are focusing now on both the future and present of Rotary in their clubs, in their communities, and throughout the world. Now, I intentionally say present and future. I say present because, as you all saw last night, we have really incredible youth exchange students. I would fight anyone that would try to argue with me that those are not current leaders of our organization. Am I right about that? Young leaders are our present leaders as well. But as Trustee Greg mentioned last night, the young leaders today are going to be leading our organization and our world 10, 20, 50 years from now. So it's important for us to invest now in those leaders today and for in the future. Now, this is a breakdown of the membership of Rotary International according to my Rotary and the breakdown of age demographics. So as you can see, our young cohort, so we'll say individuals under 40, is a very small sliver of that pie of membership. It's that yellow and green section up at the top there, so around 12% is where we're falling. Now, if you compare that to the breakdown for the population of the world, and again, this is just 18 and above, so this doesn't even include that entire 35% that Greg mentioned last night. 18 to 40-year-olds roughly makes up almost 50% of our population around the world. Now, if you compare that 12% to 50% almost, that's also a massive gap. But again, there's so much opportunity. There's so much excitement and opportunity for us to engage with those young leaders and those individuals and bring them into our organization and bring in that excitement because they are going to be the champions for our projects long into the future. Now, I did mention that I come from a Rotary family. So I grew up surrounded by Rotary, and right now I'm 25 years old, and I so strongly believe that I have been a part of this organization for at least 26 years. And I feel so fortunate about that. I was an attendee of RILA. I was a part of the Rotary Student Program, which is a career mentorship program that was actually founded in my home district. I was a part of Interact, and we hosted youth exchange students as a family. And when I graduated from high school, I was so excited to continue my journey through Rotary. And that's the case for so many of our other young individuals that we invest in through youth service programs. But here in North America especially, we are seeing a disconnect. So we're investing so much in these youth programs and these young individuals in our communities, and they feel empowered and excited to bring that impact with them for the rest of their life through this organization, but they graduate from high school and are no longer eligible for those youth service programs. And maybe they go to college, maybe they move communities, and there's no Rotaract club. And usually they don't quite feel ready to join a Rotary Club, or maybe it doesn't fit with their interests and needs at that time in their life. And so for so many of these individuals that we invest so much time and energy and resources into, their Rotary journey stops. And I have to say, I actually experienced this firsthand as well. I, as I said, graduated from high school and moved down to North Carolina to attend school. I was so excited to join Rotaract. I knew about it, and I was so pumped to continue my journey through Rotary, and there wasn't a Rotaract club. And I did not feel ready to join Rotary, even with all the background that I had a part of the organization. And thankfully, I had those resources and background to get a Rotaract club started, which we did successfully, and the club is still running today, which I'm so proud about. But then I graduated from college, and I moved back to Michigan, and there wasn't a Rotaract club. So we did it all over again. And I mentioned I'm a dual member now, so that Rotaract club is running, but I'm also a member of a Rotary club. But for so many of these youth service alumni, they don't have those resources and background to get a club started. So it's really up to us to help fill that gap and create an opportunity for them to continue their journey through Rotary. Now, some of you might be asking, okay, Taylor, what is Rotaract? We all know what Rotary is, and maybe have heard of what Rotaract is, but I'll break it down and take you through a short version of the history of Rotaract. So in 1968, the first Rotaract Club was chartered in Charlotte, North Carolina as a Rotary-sponsored program. So similar to how Interact is a Rotary-sponsored program, that's also how Rotaract started. Now, some of you may know this already, but some of you, this might be a new fun fact. Rotaract, it was founded with the foundation of focusing on hands-on service projects and actionable projects in the community, seeing that action come to life. So the term Rotaract actually comes from Rotary in action. And there's continued to be a focus on that action even 56 years later. And we've continued to grow the clubs and the members throughout Rotary International. We're at about 200,000 Rotaractors around the world now. And I feel very fortunate to have been a Rotaractor at the time that in 2019, the Council of Legislation elevated Rotaract to a membership type of Rotary International. And all of the incredible work that those Rotaractors were doing was finally recognized. And as an added bonus, that 1.2 million members that we'd been stuck at for about 10 years bumped up to 1.4 million overnight. So you know what Rotaract is, but why Rotaract? And why do we need to focus on starting these and supporting these different clubs than Rotary clubs? Why don't we just invite young leaders into our Rotary clubs? And that's a totally fair question, and I answer that in saying we need to do both. But there's a Rotaract experience, a Rotaract club experience that is different and distinct from Rotary, and I feel like the best way to explain that is through some stories. So I'd like to start with that of Moses Makangula. So Moses grew up in Zambia. He grew up in a very large family. His parents were focused on giving back to the community and wanted to make sure that their kids knew that and had that instilled in them as well. So when he moved across the world to attend Duke University as an aerospace engineering student in 2017, he brought that passion with him. And for those of you that are familiar with colleges nowadays, you know there's no shortage of clubs. There's no shortage of organizations and opportunities to get involved with. But it took Moses a full year to find an organization that met his needs in a way that he could give back to the community in a way that was meaningful for him. And it was only when we started the Rotaract Club of Duke University that he found that. He reached out when we posted about starting that club and said, this is exactly what I have been looking for. I want to be a part of this. And so he ended up being our founding vice president and is still one of my closest friends today. But I asked him a couple years ago why it took him so long. There were so many clubs at the university and in the community, and why didn't he just join a different club? And his answer was that Rotaract was the perfect combination of what he was looking for in terms of hands-on service projects, engagement in the community, understanding of the world alongside his peers, and individuals of a similar age demographic. Now, second story I'd like to share is that of Erin Aspetong. So Erin is a young professional, a young parent, a minority in a very small white community in Michigan, predominantly white community in Michigan. And a few years ago, his high school buddy, Michael Cuellar, reached out to him and said, we should join a Rotary Club. So they started visiting all the clubs in the community, kind of driving a little bit further out until they could hopefully find one that they were interested in, and just really didn't feel like there was one that was the right fit. So thankfully, instead of giving up, they actually founded a Rotaract club in Holland, Michigan, alongside 13 other young leaders. And I asked him why it took him so long to actually find that club, and eventually gave up and started his own. And it was because he needed a certain type of flexibility and partnership with other young leaders and young parents that maybe can't make it to the typical Rotary approach to meetings. Last but not least, you guys know this person. So I mentioned I come from a Rotary family and I'm a dual member. So what that means is I pay 2 sets of dues every year. I pay Rotaract and Rotary International District and Club dues. And for me, it's important because as a young leader, it's important for me to continue to focus on professional development, mentorship, and networking. And there are pieces of that in my Rotary Club, but there's way more focus on it for other young professionals. So typically Rotaract clubs have a major focus on that as well. I say all that. At the end of the day, Rotarians and Rotaractors, we are all people of action. Now it's up to you as we start to close out this Rotary year and head into the next Rotary year, what you want your impact to be. I encourage you to ask yourself, what is your legacy? Is there a certain project or initiative that you are so passionate about and want to see come to fruition or continue long beyond your time in the club? And if the answer is yes to any of those questions, I encourage you to figure out who that next champion is going to be. Figure out who you're passing that baton to, and if it's not a young leader that's stepping up to the plate, I encourage you to find that person and bring them in to this organization. Now, in my time supporting Rotaract and young leaders in Rotary over the last handful of years, and as my role on the Membership Growth Committee for RI, I've been able to work with a lot of clubs and districts and teams that have been really successful in engaging young leaders. So I want to close with sharing a few key tricks that you can use and tips for engaging young leaders in your community. Number 1 is finding your champion. Ideally, your champions, plural. There needs to be somebody in your club, in your district, focused on engaging those young leaders. Sometimes it's focused on membership or public image or foundation. It really needs to be a combination of everybody. Point number 2 is district support. So ideally at the district level, there is a group focused on engaging young leaders in some capacity. And again, this needs to be a combination of membership, public image, foundation. Everyone has skin in the game for this focus on engaging young leaders in our communities. And number 3 is leaning on the resources at the international level. If you guys haven't worked with the Rotary International membership team, they are incredible people. I've worked with them so much over the last handful of years, and they have so much knowledge, so many resources, and are ready to help you. You're not doing this alone. In our region, we have another resource called an MDIO, to throw another Rotary acronym at you, since we don't have enough already. MDIO stands for Multi-District Information Organization, and this is the zone-level support for Rotaract. So in our region, which is the Eastern US and Caribbean, that is Ascension Rotaract Network, and we are here to support you guys in your journey and engaging young leaders in your communities. And I won't dive into the details there, but Mark Rudiger, who's in the back of the room there, we have a breakout session, and we're happy to talk more about that and how we can support all of you later this morning. Now, my friends, we are in the year of creating hope in the world. Hope that someday there will be no disease. Hope that someday there will be peace everywhere. And hope that someday every single person on this earth will find a place that they can call home, that they feel welcomed, and that they are passionate and excited to be contributing to this world that we live in. And I'm honored to be a part of this organization, and so it is my hope that each of us together can work to continue to bring in new individuals into this organization and empower them to continue to grow Rotary long, long beyond our time on this earth. So I encourage you all to join me in that mission of welcoming those young leaders to the table. Thank you for your kind attention. Thank you.
Taylor, I know you can still hear me, so I won't ask you to necessarily come back on stage, but be aware that there'll be a contribution made for your appearance here today to the Polio Plus Fund of the Rotary Foundation. So thank you so much for sharing your passion about the future of Rotary and what our young members are already up to. Impressive.